Hey guys, this is RolloutReviews with RolloutReviews bringing you another BIONICLE review. This time it is set number 70783, Protector of Fire. This set contains 69 pieces and retails for about $10 US. The Protectors more or less play an equivalent role to the Turaga of the first generation. They're the elders and leaders of their respective elemental regions. The only difference is that these guys can hold their own much better in a fight and are much more well equipped. Here's the thing though, we know shockingly little about the Protectors. At least at this point we knew the names and individual personalities of the Turaga, but we don't even have that. Honestly, I think it's a big letdown as far as world building goes. As sets, I also think it's interesting that the smallest and cheapest sets in the wave, at their $10 price point, are more expensive than the original canister sets used to be. That's not to say I don't think the Protectors are worth the money, but inflation is a funny thing. We'll take a look at his construction, starting from the bottom up. His feet are small and bestial, he's got some trans orange shell pieces, but aside from that his legs are pretty simple, just standard CCBS parts. Now they're also pretty short, specifically his upper legs are almost non-existent, and a lot of people have a big problem with that. I can understand why, there are some limitations, he can't really go into any kind of kneeling pose, but aside from that, he pretty much does everything else I'd want him to. Yeah, they're a bit strange proportionally, but personally I don't think they look too bad. Most of the Protectors use the new armor piece that looks a little bit like the original Toamata chest piece as a chest piece, and it looks fantastic. Now the Protector of Fire's torso build is a little bit more complex than some of the other Protectors. So as you can see here, where the arms would usually attach, it has some extra armor plates, and I love the way they conform to the torso. The shaping here is really cool. Now because of that, it has this extra assembly to attach the arms and shoulders. It raises them up a little bit, makes them more broad, and it looks pretty cool. Unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot in terms of back coverage, but honestly I don't expect anything like that on a figure of this scale. His arms themselves are weird. They're only made up of 3 pieces, and there really isn't a lower arm at all. You just have this section and then a hand, and we're supposed to believe that this is the elbow joint. Personally, I think this is much more detrimental than his virtual lack of upper legs. A wrist joint would be incredibly useful, but as it stands, he just looks gimpy. He wears the Protector Mask of Fire. For the most part, the villagers of Akoto wear the exact same mask, but the Protector masks are a little bit more ornamental and special, having multi-color schemes, in this case translucent yellow and solid red. These masks are passed down from generation to generation, and I can only assume signify who is the leader of the tribe. As far as powers go, it seems to grant very limited elemental abilities, but that's about it. The underlying head is the same as all of the others, in this case sporting light blue light piping, and this mask attaches in pretty much the exact same way. I think it's super cool and unique that the Protector masks only cover basically half of the face, leaving the jaw exposed. I really like that. Of course, it has the trigger at the back, and by pressing the eye stalk, it will launch the mask. As I've said before, this is a really fun feature. As for weapons, he's got a couple of them. First of all, he has these. Some people like to think of them as whips, other people like to think of them as tonfas. The website calls them fire swords. So that's what we'll consider them, I guess. He holds them like this, and I suppose he can use them to guard, or slash, or he can whirl them around. Honestly, it's a little bit tricky getting him into poses with these things that make sense. But despite their simplicity, despite their strangeness, I do like the concept. Second, he has a shoulder-mounted Gatling elemental shooter. You have a pin axle here attached to a ball joint, and this connects to his shoulder just like this. Now I think this connection looks a bit janky, but it does mean there's a pivot point and a ball joint that it can move up and down on. You can even bring it around and back to store it like he does in some of the animations. Now you'll notice there is a gear back here. By twisting that, it will launch off the studs. Just like that. If you didn't catch it the first time around, we'll take a closer look at exactly how this works. If you'll notice, all 6 of the ports here are made up of 3 prongs. And when we attach one of the studs, it'll splay those prongs out just a little bit, adding a good amount of friction. Now by turning the gear on the back, it will rotate this plate. On it is a wedge, and when that wedge crosses the stud, it'll tip it off, launching it. This works in both directions. Now this is genius on multiple levels. First of all, it works well. They launch really far, really fast, and at a good pace. It's also really easy to reload and fire. But they're very tiny projectiles, and if you're not careful, you are bound to lose a few of them. But that's just the thing. They're Lego studs, some of the most common Lego parts. If you have a sizable Lego collection, you are more than likely to have a handful of these things to spare. And just in case you don't, this set comes with 7 extras. Of course, this set comes with a skull spider, in this case, the bright green variant. Now, I think the inclusion of one of these guys makes a lot more sense with the protectors than it did with the Toa. I mean, skull spiders are still very tiny enemies, but by comparison, it just seems a lot more feasible as an actual conflict. Of course, it can act as a mask, and if the protector gets his mask knocked off of his face, it can be replaced with a spider, leaving him under its control. Last but not least, as an advertised feature, each of the protectors are able to bestow their armaments on their respective Toa to give them sort of a powered-up mode. From the protector, you're gonna need his fire swords, and his shooter, but you won't need the ball joint that attaches it. Prepping Tahu is as simple as putting him on his lava board, removing the shoulder armor on his left side, and giving him his extra swords as a single dual-bladed weapon. From there, you can attach the elemental shooter up here, and give him the fire swords in his other hand. Just like this. And there you have Tahu in his powered up mode. Honestly, the protector given upgrades for all of the Toa feel tacked on, just because of what they are. It's literally just the protector giving their weapons to the Toa. But for Tahu, it feels just a bit more forced than some of the others. And I think it's because his protector's weapons are unspectacular to begin with. All he ends up with is a couple of impractical arm blades and a Gatling gun on his shoulder. And even that's impractical because of where it's attached. When he swings his arm, the gun goes with it. I can say that without a doubt, the protectors are the best smaller ranged Bionicle sets we've ever had. Just about every single Taraga or Matoran from Generation 1 pales in comparison to these guys in terms of articulation and playability alone. And that's not even considering the fact that they come with skull spiders to fend off as a bonus. The Protector of Fire is a lot of people's least favorite of the 6, and I understand why that might be. While he's personally not at the bottom of my list, admittedly he's one of the weaker sets out of the group. But that's not to say he's a bad set by any means. He's absolutely worth getting, but you might find that some of the other protectors have more to offer. So that is about it, guys, and this is IX RolloutX, signing off.